the province of Foggia, halfway across the coast between Il Tavoliere delle Puglie and the Apennines, and close to the Gargano's most beautiful beaches, lie wooded ridges and groups of hills, with between them silent villages where the Middle Ages meet the 21st century. These are the Dauni Mountains, an extraordinary enclave of nature and culture, quite unlike the environments and the geography we are used to, an ecosystem that has preserved its character, nature, history and ecology. Come and get to know them from a new perspective, in flight, on the wind. In the wind, in flight, everything is in motion. Some say you can travel standing still by using your imagination. Yet reality exceeds fantasy as we glide over these mountains covered in woods with their reserves of water, a patchwork of cornfields, stretches of poppies and sunflowers, bejeweled by castles, cathedrals and ancient walled towns, caressed by the wind, the land of the ancient civilizations of the Dauni and the Romans. The name derives from a legendary king who arrived from Greece. This is frontier country, a no man's land, forever suspended between past and future, between west and east. Always hospitable and fertile, but also the sites of ferocious battles between Samnites and Romans, Romans and Carthaginians, between Byzantines and first Longobards, then later Saracens, between Normans and Saxons, Aragonese and Angevins. A land inhabited by various peoples who left significant traces from the Paleolithic to the Renaissance, archaeological fragments, necropolis which today bring joy to devotees of archaeology and history. Here are some of the 29 municipalities in the territory of the Dauni Mountains. Dominated by an imposing castle, Deliceto is a medieval village of prehistoric origin. In the caves dug into Mount El Ceto, you can still hear the warlike echo of ancient Italic tribes. The Norman Swabian castle enshrines much of the village's history, from the Longobard age to the upheavals of the Renaissance. Below, Consolation Wood, and the sanctuary erected on the spot where, according to legend, the Madonna appeared to announce the end of the plague. Flying on, we get a taste of the extraordinary ecosystem of the Dauni Mountains, the remarkable limestone bastions of Pietra di Punta, the spectacular gorges of Accadia. Sant'Agata, the lodger of the Puglias, on a rocky point between the broad valley and the precipice. An orange flag from the Touring Club for the quality of the environmental and cultural heritage. It has preserved intact the structure of the ancient village. The stone houses and the doorways decorated with coats of arms, the many churches built over the centuries, recount the noble history of this medieval village. Sant'Agata is dominated by the imposing castle. Federico II, the Holy Roman Emperor, the wonder of the world, governed the castle directly and chose it as his personal residence. He reigned in these lands until his death in 1250. Better death than dishonour. It's as if we can see Agatone, the lord of the fortress, a proud and cruel commander who imposed the jus prima noctis, the right to the first night in the marriage bed of the common people, until he died by the hand of his humble barber who didn't want to submit to the law. In flight, the view is filled by the dense woods of Monte Leone, the highest peak of the Dauni Mountains, whose origins date back to 1300, and a Waldensian community fleeing from Provence. Then the magnificent balcony of Panni, from which you can see as far as the Gargano and the Gulf of Manfredonia. Peaks, woods, breathtaking views, extraordinary places. It's a Puglia you don't expect, that is closer to the clouds than the corn and ploughed fields of the Tavoliere. Mount Sambuco, almost 1,000 meters high, is one of the main peaks of the Dauni Mountains. It dominates Pietra Montecorvino. Its origins are tied to the older Montecorvino, which goes back to Byzantine times, developed under the Normans but destroyed in the 12th century by the Norman Roger II in his war with the Emperor. Theatre of the war between the Aragonese and the Angevins, it was sacked and burnt to the ground in the 15th century and destroyed again by an earthquake a few years later. The Terravecchia Quarter, the most ancient in the village, is a network of alleys, grottos and tiny squares with a magical and timeless atmosphere. Here you can understand the reasons why it was named one of the most beautiful villages in Italy and awarded the orange flag by the Touring Club. The original plan of the town has been enlarged and architecturally enriched, in particular in the complex made up of the Mother Church, the Norman Tower and the Ducal Palazzo, whose cellars house the fine archaeological museum. From here you can also see the remains of the fortified tower of ancient Monte Corvino, but the inhabitants call it simply the Devil's Seat. Besides the corridors of the sky, there are paths, walks and round trips, recently put in order and enlarged, a huge system covering the entire territory that lets you immerse yourself completely in the Dauni Mountains experience. Then in the air again to seek out other places, such as Bovino, one of its main centres. The Roman town is mentioned by Pliny, but its roots are even more remote. It was founded by the Dauni in the 3rd century BC. It owes its extraordinary history to its strategic role in overseeing and supplying the traffic of goods and people, soldiers and pilgrims between the Adriatic and the Tyrrhenian, between Rome, the Eastern Mediterranean and the Holy Land, right up to the past century. A city of bishops and brigands, attracted to the caravans like bees to honey. Today, Bovino is listed as one of the most beautiful villages in Italy, with its narrow streets, porticos and aristocratic palazzi with their splendid portals. Majestically dominating the city is the 11th century castle with its Norman tower, later transformed in the Ducal Palazzo, described in the 17th century as one of the most beautiful noble residences in southern Italy. The manor, which has housed such famous people as Torquato Tasso and Maria Teresa of Austria, today contains the Diocesan Museum. But the Dauni Mountains can also offer quality of life to today's traveller. And Orsara is a perfect example. Legend has it that it takes its name from a bear found with 2 cubs in a lair. But today the town has earned the City Slow mark, the international network of towns where the living is good, and this is underlined in Corsara also by the Touring Club's orange flag. Here too there is history and stories to hear, such as that of the abbey, whose current remains date back to the year 1000, when it was built on the grotto dedicated to Saint Michael, a cult site much visited by pilgrims and then headquarters of the warrior monks, the Knights of Calatrava. But there are also stories to savour, for Corsara is the undisputed food and wine capital of the Dauni Mountains. On these mountains, in these haunts, beauty, myth and mystery abound. Here is Troia, a legendary name for a village of very ancient origin that brings to mind the exploits of mythological heroes. An outpost of Christianity, a Romanesque cathedral built around the year 1100, whose splendid facade includes a majestic rose window in perforated stone that is unique of its kind, and a beautiful bronze portal. And inside, the 12 columns of the Apostles. The reasons for all this grandeur is the strategic position of Troia at the centre of the dense network of roads, from Traiana to Egnatia, that connected Rome to the east, a vital highway of contacts and communication. The wealth of the town is evident in the squares, in the high street, in the many noble palazzi. The treasure of the cathedral includes many sacred objects, and in particular the exultet, long parchments created between the 12th and 13th centuries, and of exceptional historical and artistic value. In the Municipal Archaeological Museum, Roman columns, milestones and paving from consular roads, Byzantine crosses, mosaics and sarcophagi from various eras. Mountains again, oak and beech woods, and paths to follow with tiny villages like oases. Rosetto Val Fautore, Faetto, Celli San Vito, Castelluccio Val Maggiore. Excursionists and lovers of hiking find a point of reference in the forest refuge on the summit of Mount Cornacchia, a huge green vault with a splendid panorama. From high up we can see more villages, pearls set in the dark green of the mountains, all similar, yet all different, like the incredibly green Biccari and Alberona, which has obtained many recognitions for its environmental and architectural qualities. Then too, Volturara Apula, San Marco la Catola, Celenza, Val Fautore, and the many other villages that bring to life the extraordinary world of the Dauni Mountains and deserve a visit from the traveller. We swoop down again to Lake Occhito, towards the water that flows in the streams, in the many fountains, water that makes this part of Puglia so green and its plains fertile. Water and fresh clean air, a breeze that blows hard, natural forces that in the Dauni Mountains create clean energy. Our flight is over, but it was just a foretaste. Now the real journey can start, slower, more profound, more gentle. A journey to the heart of the Dauni Mountains, haunts of man and of nature.